Star Wars Obi Wan Kenobi takes place in between Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, and is directed by Deborah Chow. So this show was pitched as the rematch of the century, right? It's going to be the fight between Obi Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader that we didn't even really know happened in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So I was super excited for this personally. It was cool to think about the prospect that there was a third fight that we never knew about. I know the fans were crazy excited about this. I mean, the hype was real when this thing was happening. So just a forewarning, I'm not going to refrain from spoilers in this review. If you haven't seen the show, you might want to tune out, or if you're just not going to watch it or you want to know my spoiler thoughts before you give it a shot, that's fine too. You can stick around then as well. So first and foremost, I was just super excited to see Ewan McGregor take on the role of Obi Wan Kenobi again. His role is one of the best parts of the prequel trilogy for sure, without a doubt.
Hello there.
General Kenobi.
So it was cool to see him back, and as expected, he is fantastic as Obi-Wan in this show. I think he played the character pretty consistently to the way he did in the prequel trilogy, so that was much appreciated as well. Now, Hayden Christensen coming back to play Darth Vader was something that I was hesitant about, even though the choice made a lot of sense. I found his performance in the prequels as Anakin Skywalker to be kind of hit or miss most of the time.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
But I also realized he was kind of put up against poor writing a lot of the times in those movies, so I was really wanting to give him a chance to redeem himself here, and Hayden Christensen rose to the occasion. He absolutely redeemed himself in this show. He really just nailed the movements of Darth Vader, which probably wasn't easy to do in that suit, but man, he got it down. It was cool to see his fighting style in that suit as well, so that was awesome. Of course, with this new show, we are introduced to new characters and new cast members. Seeing as how this show takes place after the events of Order 66 and all the Jedi have been wiped out, there are Inquisitors out there trying to look for the remaining Jedi that they may have missed. And I like this decision because it really does show how ruthless the Empire is even during this time when things are a little bit more slow in the world. And I was excited to see Inquisitors just because they've been a part of Star Wars canon for a very long time. So of course, along with this, we did have to see the Grand Inquisitor, which was very exciting, and Rupert Friend just knocks this role out of the park. I did think his look maybe could have used some work, but the role that he's playing, as far as the performance goes, he is fantastic in the role, and I really like seeing him here. He is a very intimidating presence. He really nails it. Sung Kang is here as the fifth brother, and for what he has to do in the show, I thought he did a pretty good job. I definitely would have appreciated seeing a lot more of that character, though, just to get a better sense of who he is. He has a lot of real good friction and tension between the third sister, or Reva, as we learn in this show, who is played by Moses Ingram, and Moses Ingram is nothing short of excellent in this series. She gives a fantastic performance as this character, and the series does a good job giving her clear motivations as to why she is an Inquisitor. Her friends were killed during Order 66 by Vader, so she's kind of using this as an opportunity to infiltrate and be Vader's employee to try to get to Vader at the end of the day and to try to seek vengeance, essentially. But she's also got beef with Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan essentially trained Anakin Skywalker, who became Darth Vader. I thoroughly enjoyed diving into all that, honestly. An actor that I love is Kumail Nanjiani right now. I think he's just awesome right now, but him being in the show was fine. I thought he did a serviceable job. He didn't really get a lot of time. He kind of plays this phony Jedi character that Obi-Wan finds and kind of calls out and then asks him for his help to get around the city streets. And I just think they maybe could have gone a different approach with that character. Again, it wasn't one of the biggest bothers that I had, but I don't know if Kumail Nanjiani's personality fit, but I thought he performed to the best of his ability, at least. They were really trying to play him as the comic relief here, and I just don't know that it worked for the tone. Indira Varma is an actress that I was very familiar with from Game of Thrones, and here she's playing a rebel spy named Tala, who is helping out Obi-Wan Kenobi. She's great in this show as she was in Game of Thrones, but again, here's another character that I just would have liked a lot more time with. By the time it came to the point where she sacrifices herself to save Obi-Wan, I should have felt a lot more emotional about that death scene, but we just didn't get enough time with that character, character, and that's kind of when it hit me that the show is kind of not giving these characters a lot of time. O'Shea Jackson Jr. is another example of a character that's just not built enough. He is great in the show. He's playing Roken, who's a leader of a rebellion faction, which is very interesting, but it's kind of shoving him in there too. One of the show's biggest faults really is just not having enough time to do everything it wants or not utilizing that time wisely. Many episodes feel too short or too long, which means that the pacing overall just kind of stinks. As fans, we know at this point in the timeline, Obi-Wan is supposed to be stuck on Tatooine watching Luke Skywalker, so in order for this fight between him and Darth Vader to happen, they had to find a really good reason to get Obi-Wan Kenobi off-world in order to do that, and I thought they handled that tremendously well. They pretty much asked the question, what if meanwhile the alternative hope to Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia Organa, gets kidnapped and Obi-Wan has to go off-world and try to save her? Let me tell you guys something. Vivian Lyra Blair is a fantastic actress. She played a 10-year-old Leia Organa extremely well and completely did Carrie Fisher justice in this role. I thought it was very consistent with the work that Carrie Fisher brought, and I totally bought this as the 10-year-old Leia. I love the moments where we got to just see Leia's home life on Alderaan. It just better built the character, and we got to see Jimmy Smith's return as Bail Organa, or Leia's adopted father, and the relationship between the two of them was completely consistent and very sweet. Deborah Chow did a good job pulling from canon source material to use as a reference point of how that relationship between Leia and her adopted father would be, and they just did a tremendous job writing those scenes and performing those scenes as well. I think Deborah Chow is a really good director. Based on the 2 episodes that she did in the first season of The Mandalorian, I would say that she gets Star Wars and she likes Star Wars and she understands it to quite a big degree. I think giving somebody who's up and coming, such as she is, the big task of doing Obi-Wan Kenobi might have been a big ask and possibly a little bit of a mistake here, unfortunately. The environments in the show are pretty much all CGI, and some look really good, like especially Alderaan for the most part, but others look a lot more cheap. It's very noticeable how CGI they are a lot of the time, and this really weighed on me as the audience member. I also think some of the lightsaber shots just make it look a lot more noticeable that they are using props, which obviously they are, but even in some of the lesser George Lucas directed films, this wasn't an issue. Like I said, Alderaan looks great overall, but the scene where they're running through the forest and chasing after Leia, pretty much the scene where she gets kidnapped, definitely looks like something out of a CW show. There's another scene where Obi-Wan, Tala, and Leia are escaping an Imperial base, and to try to hide Leia, Obi-Wan puts her in his coat, and this was a poor decision. It looked very cheesy and made the show feel like a cartoon overall, and it just doesn't feel up to the Star Wars standards, or especially up to the standards that you would hope an Obi-Wan Kenobi show would be. It's just missing the mark in that respect. I must say though, overall, the show does feel like it was made with good intentions, and Deborah Chow definitely had a story to tell here, which was enough to keep me coming back week after week, to the show's credit. The big question is, how is the fight, the thing that was pitched to the audience before the show's release, how did it go? It's the main event. It's the reason we're all tuning in. And I gotta say, the fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader is extremely epic. It definitely made me miss the movie theater experience, because I would have loved to have seen fans' reactions in moments like this.
Have you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan?
I will do what I must.
Or a moment like this. I think Chow really exceeded with the action at the end here for this fight, for sure. I liked her effort to shoot action differently than we'd seen in other Star Wars contents, especially lightsaber action. She kind of does that throughout the series. She's definitely trying something new when it comes to the action. And this lightsaber duel just looks like something unlike we've ever seen in any other Star Wars project. This fight is also intercut with Reva trying to get Luke and capture him over at the farm, and it was great to see Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, Joel Edgerton, and Bonnie Pisces do come back to reprise these roles from the prequels, and for what they have, they do excellent work, especially Joel Edgerton. He gets some really good scenes with Obi-Wan in this series.
Leave us alone. When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
And I actually thought Reva's story tied up very nicely. She did decide not to kill Luke after all, after thinking about everything that she's been through and everything that happened with her friends. Obi-Wan definitely kind of got to her. She performs very well in a final emotional scene. I think her and Ewan McGregor have great chemistry here, and they perform this scene very well. And the ending really wrapped up nicely when Obi-Wan got to see his former master again, and they got to be reunited. Qui-Gon Jinn is back here as a Force ghost, and it was great to have Liam Neeson just come back for that one moment. Also at the end here, Obi-Wan got to meet young Luke Skywalker in person, and we even got a classic.
Hello there.
I also want to point out that Natalie Holt's score for the series is pretty serviceable. It does a pretty good job keeping you in. Also though, John Williams came back to do a theme for Obi-Wan. He's never got to do that before in anything else, and that was really great to hear, and that theme has really grown on me over time. All right, so look, overall, Obi-Wan Kenobi is not as great as I was hoping. I don't think it was as epic or as great as everybody was hoping, but the story does keep me interested. It kept me coming back week after week, like I said, and it gives me more to think about when watching the original trilogy. It also wraps up very nicely, as I said, and I think at this point, despite my issues, I'd rather have this show than not have it, if that makes sense. I'm gonna go ahead and give Obi-Wan Kenobi a might watch. All right, guys, look, that's my review of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. I am prepping for The Mandalorian Season 3 by doing all the live action series I haven't done reviews yet for on this channel, so please join me on the journey the rest of the way. It's been a lot of fun to revisit these for sure. And before I get out of here, guys, please do us a favor, hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, and hit the bell for notifications. That's always much appreciated. Once again, I'm Don Martino, and I will talk to you guys later.